Well, let's now cross over to the Kenyatta International Conference Center, where there is a major event in regards to infrastructure in the African continent. Let's cross over and join my colleague who is on standby. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Irene. We are here at the KICC for the second day of PIDA Week. PIDA being the Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa, where we're talking matters infrastructure and how they relate to intra-Africa trade. Now, we have with us here Mr. Sylvester Kasuku, who will be telling us more on infrastructure and what we have been able to talk about. Mr. Sylvester, we were talking about the Honorable Raila Odinga yesterday said that 80% of infrastructure in Africa usually fail during the business planning stage. How is that?
Yes, most likely the issues are always about financing, and a lot of projects do face financing problems. And particularly if we are talking about areas where governments need to take a lead in financing of projects, sometimes they take quite a longer gestation period for them to mature into actual implementation and actually completion on time. So there is always an issue of resources, and in terms of financial resources, and then the time resource is equally usually a constraint. But where you need private sector to come on board, particularly under PPPs or concessions, again, the problem is usually how perhaps to de-risk infrastructure projects in the continent. Many a times, investors are not keen on very long-term, projects with a longer, with a lot of time to recover the investments they've had. And this is because of some of the administrative challenges, as well as issues of change of government. So going forward, these are issues that need to be fixed. We need to fix the risks that deter investors from investing in Africa. We need to deal with the issues of finances, and we need to deal with the issues of timelines for delivery.
Of course, the delegates have been preaching on public-private partnership in order to finance infrastructure projects, especially in the continent. However, the private sector are saying we need bankable projects, and at that, we need to be sole runners of infrastructure projects. They're saying that we are not being involved privately. We need to have full control of these infrastructure projects. Is it possible then to have a scheme where the private sector can run infrastructure projects, and not just small infrastructure projects, large ones?
Yes, very possible, and know that it's not happening. There are a lot of infrastructure projects right now. Actually, between the year 2012 and now, there are a lot of mega infrastructure projects. There are some which are like $1 billion, others in the tune of $800 million, others $900 million, others $700 million. And a lot of these are usually actually port projects. Whether you are looking at the port of Alexandria, you are looking at Tangier, you are looking at the port of Lobito, you are looking at the Tema port, you are looking at the port of Abidjan, you are looking at the port of Djibouti. All these have attracted private capital, and in a large scale, I mean in large numbers. And I believe that a lot of other projects can equally attract financing in Africa. However, the reason why port projects attract easy financing is because they're usually dollar dominated, particularly in terms of transactions, and actually they are able to recover their investments faster. But areas where there are difficulties, particularly with bankable projects, is mainly when you're talking about highways as well as railways. And of course, railways is the one that usually faces the greatest difficulty. But infrastructural services like electric power supply has always had a number of financing instruments being offered. And the same applies to pipeline projects, particularly for oil, because again, these are infrastructure projects with a bankable, streams of income.
So just to cut you off there, we're talking about infrastructure projects that the private sector wants to run. Okay, you're an expert in matters integration, cross-border trade, and you were talking about coming up with an integrated digital money system in between countries. Is that possible? Can we hope then that there will be a time African countries will be able to trade with each other on the digital platform?
Absolutely. Digitalization is actually the next sector of the economy. And it is estimated that by the year 2030 we should be having the digital economy actually accounting for about 10% of GDPs in Africa. Again, going forward, having seen challenges that were caused by the pandemic, when physical movement became a challenge, again, going digital is actually the one measure that is going to ensure that whereas we have difficulties in terms of accessing different parts of Africa physically, but using digital platforms, we should be able to transact without really making physical movements. Again, what needs to be done with regard to digital platforms is to ensure the integrity of the platforms, and through e-commerce, we must have integrity in terms of transactions, in terms of goods that are moving, so that we don't move goods that were not intended to be moved. And we do not move goods that are said to be illegal in the name of moving a good that is legal. And that a good arriving at another destination and you find that you have actually received the wrong good. So integrity in terms of e-commerce and integrity of the digital platforms. Again, African countries finding a way through which we can actually transact using currencies in Africa, having stronger integrity in terms of the exchange rates between the countries, and effecting digital payment systems, which are well regulated, not really regulated to kill the digitalization process of transacting business and of conducting e-commerce, but to facilitate that movement, and governments requiring to put their heads together to collaborate in order for us to strengthen integration of the continent as we build the physical infrastructure that is leading us to where we are going.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sylvester. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much, Irene. We have been indulged by Mr. Sylvester Kasuku, who is an expert in matters infrastructure, and we have come to learn that in the future, at some point, we will be able to have a digital economy where African countries will intertrade and will be able to do payments without thinking of the consequences of currencies. Back to you in studio, Irene.